Folks, this is Paul, instructional coach at Lorenzo Walker Technical College, and I was talking to an instructor the other day, and this is a new instructor to our institution, and unfamiliar with CTEM and Marzano and all that, and I started kind of just on a piece of paper, just drawing a simple classroom in which there was a teacher and then some students, and I started drawing some arrows, and I said, look, so what we all grew up with, for the most part, is a traditional teaching, um, which usually involves, a teacher shares information and it's directed at students. And those students sometimes answer questions, sometimes they ask questions, and it's usually directed at the teacher. So it goes back and forth in this direction. And when that happens, you have basically a teacher-directed classroom environment. The students give the answer that they think the instructor wants. Okay, so when the instructor says, what does the E stand for in E equals MC squared, right? Then they're hoping, that they're going to provide that answer that the teacher wants. Okay, now when that happens, it's usually an inauthentic question in that the instructor already knows the answer, right? So Einstein here already knows that E stands for energy, right? So when he poses this question, he knows the answer. She knows, they all know, that he's not really curious about what the E stands for. He knows what it stands for. In that sense, it's an inauthentic question. That doesn't mean that inauthentic questions are always bad. It just means that if the overwhelming majority of your questions are inauthentic, then possibly you might have an inauthentic learning environment. The answers that the students provide are either right or wrong, right? So there's not much subtlety or nuance or ambiguity. And the students answer the instructor while the other students don't listen very closely. Okay, so if this guy answers Professor Einstein, right? Usually in this traditional setting, what Einstein is going to do is validate that answer and usually paraphrase or summarize it for the rest of the students. So in effect, what the students learn to do is tune out each other and just wait for the professor or the instructor to validate or summarize what that student said. So when this student speaks, these students don't really need to listen, okay? As opposed to contemporary or dialogic learning, now Einstein, you can see, is circling around the room, monitoring for understanding and application of knowledge learned. Okay, so now we have the students they're positioned so that they can collaborate, and these arrows mean that they're all kind of directing discourse towards one another. And you can see that they're posing questions, they're conducting research, they're sharing information, they're applying what they've been learning, they're hypothesizing, what if this happened, or maybe is this the reason that this occurs, etc. While this is happening, of course, Professor Einstein is monitoring for their comprehension of that lesson. So when this occurs, you have student-directed instruction. The students are asking questions that they're actually curious about. Where'd my arrow go? There it is. Students are asking questions that they're curious about, so they want to know the answers to these questions. Their questions are authentic, and in many cases, the instructor, when posing a question, really doesn't know the answer, is curious, like, I wonder what would happen if you replace this variable with that, etc., etc. The answers that the students provide, or sometimes that the teacher provides, they are speculative, they're nuanced, they're ambiguous, they can be surprising, right? So it's not just black and white, it's not just yes or no or right or wrong. And students can answer other students, so they're more likely to listen closely. That's not a guarantee, right? This girl here can just tune out if she wants to. She can not participate. She can be on her cell phone. She can be thinking about other things, but she's more likely to be paying close attention and thinking deeply when you have a structured, collaborative environment. Now, as this professor, this instructor is monitoring instruction, he's at the applying level in Marzano CTEM, right? To take it to innovating, he's then going to adjust some part of this classroom setup in response to some condition that seems to be presenting itself. So when this kiddo doesn't seem to be understanding the process correctly, or when this kiddo or student seems to, you know, be getting off on a tangent, or is asking the wrong kinds of questions. When this teacher then intervenes and poses a slightly adjusted, set of parameters for the students, then this instructor has now taken it to the innovating level. So I hope this helps, this visual. I just thought maybe, if you're wondering, like, what is this really, all this CTEM stuff, this is it in a nutshell. So, think about it, talk about it with your colleagues, and just find out, can you can you replicate this in your room? And if not, what are the barriers? And then let's talk about it. All right. So have a groovy day, and you can play this again at random for all your friends at parties. It'll be a blast. All right. Take care.